I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? Anything? What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. Public comment. Just come up to the microphone and state your name and go at it.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share some information and some opinions with you, if I may. My name is Marty McGettrick. I live on Poorhouse Road near Bank of Virginia. But as I've expressed, and you probably know, I was very disappointed when the Board of Supervisors, by a split vote of 3-2, requested VDOT to deconstruct the swinging bridge. I personally am totally convinced that one of the primary purposes of that swinging bridge is to allow safe passage for pedestrians, particularly in times of high water. And when you take that away, quite frankly, it severely impacts all pedestrians. As you know, this is a busy location. I mean, we got hikers going through there. We've got multiple swimming holes that the swimmers go to, children and adults. There's local people in the community that love to walk there. But now the sole access will be the low water bridge. And how problematic is that? But in any event, I spent some time thinking about issues down the road as a result of this development. And quite frankly, I appreciate the opportunity to share those thoughts with you. And I'm hoping that some of you will be persuaded. But my primary concern was by this ruling, you have increased the risk of all pedestrians, because the assured way they have to get back and forth from one side to the other is gone. The only way they can do that is to travel up and down the low water bridge. And that's a risky thing at times. I've lived in this community close to 50 years. So I've been up and down the low water bridge and the swinging bridge as well, hundreds of times. With my kids and so forth. It was something they loved to do, especially the low water bridge in the summertime, you know, like we all probably did. But I see multiple instances of somebody making a mistake as to the height of the water and how powerful water can be in terms of its ability to sweep you away. As you may know, not too long ago, we've lost 2 people to drowning in the river. 2, trying to get from one side to the other. So this is a busy place, but it can be a very dangerous place. And without the help of a swinging bridge to assure safety going back and forth, what you've done is you've increased the risk of harm and possibly even death by drowning by forcing all pedestrians, hikers, swimmers, people in the community. And I can tell you, having lived there for as long as I've had, that's a busy place, especially in the summertime, especially on weekends. The phrase that came to mind to me as I was thinking about this is that this, in effect, is an accident waiting to happen, because all of the ducks are in that kind of row. And to further maybe sharpen your focus on a typical situation where a mistake can be made, I can tell you from my own experience many years ago when my kids were toddlers. They, as I said, we loved to take that walk. And going out from the Criglersville side, we did use the low water bridge. It was maybe a little bit of water, but you know, we took our shoes off and just went through. They like to do that. And so we had lunch with us, and we went off and did some hiking and had a lunch and so forth. And then on the way back, after, I don't know, a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, we came back to the bridge, and I noticed that the level of the water had increased, and the flow of the water had increased. And despite my kids wanting to do so, we were not going to go back on that low water bridge, in my opinion. But no brainer, we went across on the swinging bridge. But if that swinging bridge was not there, I might have made a mistake. I may have miscalculated the force and the speed of that water, and it could have been disastrous, especially for my kids, and maybe me as well. So that's my point. That's the decision-making all pedestrians may have to make when the water gets high. And it's a unique location. I'm not sure there's many locations that are as well trafficked and have, you can put up all the signs you want, but people are gonna come. And they're gonna, you know, try to get one across one way or the other. But thinking about my own situation again, because, well, it would be tempting to me at the time, I hope I would do the right thing, but it would be that, all right, I've got two things to do. I can turn around and go all the way to, what am I, Quaker Run, or the other way, the town the other way.
Banco.
And that still leaves me miles away from home. So what's going through my head is, I don't know, maybe we ought to take the risk. You see what I'm saying? We ought to take the risk. And I expect that's a scenario that could be repeated by multiple situations. You also have situations where, you know, kids running ahead of their mom and dad after a hike or a walk, they get to the river first. Well, they mistakenly may think, well, we came in this way, let's go out this way. And bingo, they get swept away. So I urge you, and I've been trying to suggest very forcefully that you reconsider the deconstruction of the bridge. I don't think it's good for the community, and I think you've added an increased risk of severe injury to every pedestrian that makes that back and forth journey, particularly in times of high water. And I'm also concerned that you have in hand a petition signed by 400 people saying they want the bridge to be preserved. At every meeting I have been to, everyone who spoke in favor of wanting the bridge to be reserved, with maybe one exception, a budding landowner. And what worries me is that, are you listening to your constituents, the people who voted to put you in office to do what's best? Leadership is not always a matter of counting nickels and dimes. Leadership, in my opinion, I've been down that road. I was an elected official myself for 8 years as Commonwealth's attorney. And I had decisions to make in terms of charging or not charging and alienating some people in my decision-making. But my guiding light was always to do the right thing. So I urge you, do the right thing here. That was one issue that I thought about a lot, and I'm just sharing with you my thoughts. The other issue is, another serious issue is that if perchance, let's put it this way, I'm not saying I know a lot about a lot of things, but the one thing I do know about is the law. I was a practicing lawyer for 30 years. I've had 140 jury trials, many of them having to do with wrongful death. So what I'm about to say, I think, should have some weight. And that is, let's assume perchance that somebody, under the scenario we've just talked about, did make a mistake. A father said, this water's not too fast, we can wade through this. But he doesn't, and bingo, he's gone and drowns. Well, I can tell you this. The attorney who is going to look at that case, it's a wrongful death case, is going to try to find out how the deconstruction of the bridge happened and who made it happen. And he's going to go after them. He's going to go after them. And in this case, that could very well be the county for asking for it, and also VDOT. They shut it down to begin with. As I said, sorry. I don't know how to do this.
All right, Ms.
Is this okay?
Yeah, we do
Okay.
need to kind of
All right.
get to it.
Okay. But kind of lost my train of thought now.
Liability.
The liability. But it's more than just theory. I mean, the law is changing all the time, but I mean, if I was the lawyer, I'd look at it. I'd look at it really hard. So, lastly, I've spoken to you before about how VDOT has indicated they would bring the bridge up to speed, and they're looking for somebody. It seems to be the only issue at odds between VDOT and the county is who will do the future maintenance on it. My God, it seems that the board and VDOT ought to get together and work that out. And as you know now, there's a prohibition on the property of Bonnie Dixon. She will not allow them to come on her property, and she will consider it a trespass if they do so in order to deconstruct. She would be glad to give permission to make the improvements. But in any event, that's pretty much what I have to share with you, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I just wanted to appreciate Marty for what he said. And just as an FYI, I don't even think the lower bridge, which I've never considered a bridge, but more of a road, is not passable at all. right
And your
now.
name,
I
Miss
don't even think we would
Alcanthaler?
want to go through it in a car.
State your name
Oh,
for the
I'm
record.
sorry.
I apologize. Go ahead, please.
Judy Alcanthaler,
Thank you.
Kriegersville. Anyway, that's not even passable, I would think, by car. Because we were going to pick up Bonnie, and we were going to have to go all the way around. I agree with everything Marty said. I have walked across that lower bridge, if that's what you call it, for all the years I've lived here. Ellen Early has. And I've walked across that bridge when it's not deep and have slipped. So you can be walking across that, and all of a sudden your feet are gone and you're down the river. Okay. Number two, this is an addendum actually to a previous meeting that was held by you all. And Mr. Jewett, at that meeting, had postured that he would be willing to look at this whole process and consider it and maybe look into our concerns and see if we could salvage something. That was before the vote. And then when it came up to a vote, and Mr. Yao made the pronunciation very effectively that he was against it, blah, 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 because I think you said there would be parties, and somebody else said there would be kids getting hurt and all this liability. Well, first of all, and Ms. Early hopefully can attest, because she's even lived in the community longer than me, there's never been one party in that area, on that bridge, anywhere around it. As far as I know, there's never been anybody hurt going across the bridge. Now, I would imagine people certainly could get hurt going across that lower bridge because it's slippery, and there's all kinds of people down there all the time. So it's real liable that one day, not to mention, there was a little boy who died who lived across the street when he got rushed away. So I would implore Mr. Jewett to reconsider his position, which he changed as soon as Mr. Yao made his statement, and the vote became 3-2. So that's all, because I didn't have a chance to make a comment on that at the last bridge, because I was so encouraged by Mr. Jewett's comment and very disappointed when he changed his mind. And you have a way of saying things, Mr. Yao, that is very authoritarian, very authoritative, and I'm not sure people want to disagree with you. So I would hope that if anybody up there would like to disagree with Mr. Yao on this, that they would do that. And I say that with all due respect to you.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yes, sir, please.
Hello, I'm Chris Latin. I live on Church Street here in Madison. Thank you for hearing me this evening. I guess I'm also bringing a health and safety issue before you. I want to call to your attention, or I'll use the word remind you of what I think is an unusually dangerous intersection in Madison County. I say remind because I think probably everyone here is aware of this intersection. It's where Oak Park Road goes about a mile eastward from McDonald's, and Oak Park Road, Carpenter's Mill, and O'Neill's come together. Oak Park from the left and O'Neill's have stop signs, and Oak Park coming up from McDonald's has no stop sign going on to Carpenter's Mill, and vice versa. Well, earlier this month, my wife was involved in a bad accident there. She was broadsided as she went through that intersection by someone running the stop sign on Oak Park Road. And it easily could have killed her. If the other driver had been 1 foot to the right, he would have gone right through her driver's door. As it was, he was stopped by the engine block. So, and driving, well, Pat is always, she drives out there a couple of times a day, almost every day of the week. And she's always been concerned about that intersection. I'm ashamed that I'm just now appearing before you because for years I've heard eyewitness accounts of people seeing drivers run those stop signs. Thankfully, at the time, no one else was in the intersection. I did a little Freedom of Information Act request on that intersection, and apparently there have been 20 accidents there in the last 10 years, not counting one that hit a deer. There have been apparently 5 or 6 injuries. The report said no fatalities, although I've heard someone died in an accident in that general area in the past. So, and people, like I say, frequently run those stop signs. My wife has seen them. And as soon as this happened, a lot of other people spoke to me and said they were concerned about that intersection and they had seen people run the stop signs. So I know, well, a friend of mine said, well, any intersection is dangerous if people don't stop, but this one, the lay of the land is unusual. If you're going roughly east on Oak Park from McDonald's, you really can't see the traffic on Oak Park on the left. Oak Park makes a left turn there at that intersection. There's hills and curves and dips in the road, so you can't see what's coming from the left. If the foliage is down, you can see a little better on O'Neill's. So, and I'm not a highway engineer, but I'll go ahead and be bold and maybe make some recommendations. I think just something as simple as rumble strips as you approach the 2 stop signs would help get somebody's attention that there's something coming up. In this case, we happen to know the person who was following the man who ran the stop sign earlier this month. And he said, well, he went slowly as he came out of Malvern and then suddenly rapidly accelerated. And our friend, our acquaintance who was following him thought he's never going to stop at that stop sign. And that, of course, is when that gentleman hit my wife. But I think maybe rumble strips or something simple like that would get his attention and possibly not be too costly. Or I know at Pratt's, I believe it is, there are running lights around the stop signs. That might help a bit. Or if you could put up a flashing light, you know, at that intersection, flashing red in 2 directions and yellow in the other 2. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Or have you heard of problems at that intersection?
Not as many as, not so many. But VDOT is here tonight, so we'll bring it up in front of Ms. Shepherd.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Lattin, just just for your information, I mean, I grew up here, and the traffic pattern changed from what I'm used to, and I've come very close to not recognizing that coming off of Oak Park, coming back to Madison, I now have to stop because I didn't used to have to do it. Okay,
Right, that's what I've heard.
And you know, a lot of us, it's just one of those things. I've been traveling all my life, and then it changed. So yeah, we'll bring it up with Ms. Shepherd.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it reminds me, a number of people have said, well, they should make it a 4-way stop, but I'm thinking maybe, but that doesn't really protect you from people who run the stop sign. You stop, then you go, and they still run the stop sign. Plus, it's kind of a similar situation. Everyone is used to driving from Oak Park eastward straight onto Carpenter's Mill. So probably a lot of people, if you now introduce a stop sign, they'll be running that going the other direction. So it's a tough situation. But if anything could be done to get somebody's attention as they approach that intersection, I think it would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yes, sir. What do you have, Alan? Are you public or IT?
Just commenting as a member of the public.
There you go.
My family actually lives at that intersection where the brick house on the left. So if you turn on to go towards Malvern, that's us. I would like to echo everything the gentleman just said. We have watched people wreck there from our front porch. My window actually looks out onto that stop sign. We have seen cars flipped over, and the majority of the people running the stop sign that I have seen are coming from Malvern towards O'Neill's.
Absolutely.
But they run the stop sign constantly. You can sit on our porch and watch it all day long. It is very dangerous. We would rather not have to go out there and help direct traffic. Again, it's been a long time since we've ever had to do that, but it's very dangerous, and people run it constantly. It is a problem. Thank you all.
Other public comment? Yeah, let Ms. Early go, and then, yes, sir, Mr. Lawton.
Thank you. My name is Ellen Early, and about the Kriegersville Swinging Bridge, I just had one question for VDOT. You know, I went through all of the meetings with the landowners and the attorney and everything, and we were ready to do a 501(c)(3). And I guess the one question I have for VDOT, or for one of you to ask VDOT, is why it was closed. Because it just seemed like, for those of us that walked across the bridge, it was overnight, and we didn't know why.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Early. Mr. Lawton?
Just to follow up on what the gentleman said, it's interesting. One thing is you're approaching that on Oak Park, because of the lay of the land, it's hard to see cars coming from Malvern. But my wife has always seen people running from the stop sign at O'Neill's. So sadly, she was looking that way as she approached the intersection, and this time she encountered somebody coming from Malvern. So I think both directions are dangerous.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Other public comment? Other public comment? All right, moving on. We'll do public comment again at the end of this. We do have a consent agenda. We have minutes from 9/10/2024, not 2:04 like the agenda. And then we have supplemental appropriation number 8, which is use of contingency for IT. The money has been approved, but it's going full-time. It's going from part-time to full-time.
It was a
Please.
typo in what was in the packet versus what was uploaded today. That should have been full-time. You have approved moving that fund. This is just the mechanism, Jennifer, which I appreciate, like to have a supplemental to do that. So this would be the avenue. This position's been hired. If we can introduce, Federico is with us tonight. He's our newest IT technician, but that would be moving those funds officially via supplemental to the IT budget.
Nice to have you with us. Welcome. Questions on the consent agenda? What would you like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Blue Ridge Committee, Mr. Bowman, Mr. Ballard, Ms. Bowman, anybody? Welcome.
Is this on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Last Thursday evening, September 19th, was the Blue Ridge Committee for Shenandoah National Park Relations. Mr. Ballard and Judd Buchanan and myself, we attended that meeting. And there are a few things I think that that we should mention to you. I'm sure you know by now we have a new superintendent for the Shenandoah National Park. J. Tracy Stakely, Stakely. He's supposed to be on board October the 7th. However, he will not be in the park full-time until January of '25. He's at Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina right now, and has to move his family up to Virginia. So that's we're really glad. I hope this one sticks around a while. So the other we had one employee of the park there, Dr. Evan Childress, that gave a state of the park address, and what they're doing now is soliciting bids for new concessionaires. And the unique thing about this round is that the concessionaire will be managing all the campgrounds and taking care of the facilities, which is different from what it has been. A lot of your national parks and national forests are going to that, state parks also. And the new contracts will also include some renovations on Big Meadows Lodge. So that's something new coming up. However, there's they will not have a new concessionaire until January of 2026. So it will be Delaware North up until then. Another thing that's kind of interesting, they have such a problem with congestion on the big days, the leaf days, month of October, on Route 33 and Route 211 at the entrance stations. They're thinking about putting in traffic lights, which will really change the whole flavor of that upper mountain part.
On 33 and 211?
Yes, those are the big entry points.
Oh, at the entrance.
At the, I assume it'll be a VDOT stopping traffic on 211, people going in and coming out, and the same on Route 33. So anyway,
That's a good plan. Gosh.
that'll be something different to look forward to. Just as a side note, he mentioned that ginseng poaching. Everybody knows what ginseng is. It's really become a problem in the Rapidan Wildlife Management area where it borders the park. They sprayed for spongy moth, gypsy moth, back around the Big Meadow Central District back in this early this spring. Dry weather seems to encourage gypsy moth growth, and the North District is what's getting hit really hard. So you can look forward to seeing a lot of defoliated trees in the future. Chronic wasting disease hasn't shown itself in the park yet. They do have a contingency plan where they'll go in and government sharpshooters, they'll cut the deer herd way back. But hopefully that will not happen. They had 6 seasonal backcountry positions this summer. They were only able to fill 2 because of a lack of qualified candidates. So the backcountry is kind of a dysfunctional program right now. They're not able to patrol the backcountry like they used to. There tends to be a lot of boundary line disputes, access to hiking trails over private land, and that's starting to become more of a problem. The closest one is close to Jim Ballard up in on the Conway, trying to get up Pocosin Run, where the landowner has closed access. So the question is whether maybe the localities could work with the Park Service. So our next meeting, which is May 15th of 2025, that's going to be on the agenda. And then the program was really interesting. I think I mentioned last time I was here that the brook trout population in the Shenandoah National Park, this is the remnants of a population that used to be really healthy, and they're dwindling. Low water, high temperatures, acid rain. So lower elevation streams, smaller streams are the ones that are where the trout are disappearing. you're talking about 1 or 2 brook trout per 100 meters. And this is a big economic thing for Madison County. Gosh, I run into people up in the park on the streams from they'll drive 2 or 3 hours from Richmond, DC, just to come down here to fish and spend their money while they're here. So it's a big, it could be a concern, but we are lucky in Madison County because the major watersheds like the Rapidan, the Conway, the Hughes River are the ones that are least affected. If you're familiar with where the Stanton River comes into the Rapidan, there are no trout from there down to the Grays Mill parking lot now. But as you go up in elevation and up the streams, the population increases. It's just something you need to be aware of. So, and the other thing that this presentation is by Dr. Childress. He's been studying brook trout this is a study that's been going on for years and years. And anyway, the ecology of the stream will change because the brook trout is one of the major predators. So things are bound to change. I've looked up some figures before I came. Shenandoah last year had 1.5 million guests. They dumped $114 million into the 8 localities around the park. There were 1,350 jobs created. And once you add those two, it's a figure of $156 million, which to me is pretty substantial for these small mountain communities. So people want to come here, spend their money, and then they go home, which is what we want, the tourism aspect of it. Judd, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for including me in this, and I learned so much that I didn't know.
It's been fun, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things. The emerald ash beetle has really destroyed a lot of the ash trees along Skyline Drive, so you go up there and it's just all these skeleton trees along the drive, which could fall at any time. So that was one of the things. Regarding the gypsy moth / spongy moth, they call it now, if it's a damp spring, there's a fungus that kills these worms, these caterpillars. But if it's a dry spring like we've had the last couple of years, they proliferate. So we just kind of hope for more wet springs, I think.
More wet weather, yeah.
And then the droughts just dry up those small streams, and the trout have a hard time living in those, even at the higher elevations. But what I found interesting is the acid rain, which is big back in the 80s and 90s, that's been going away. And the places where it really hit hard was down southern part of the Shenandoahs, where it's obsidian and other types of silica glass rock that doesn't release minerals to take away that acidity. So that trout population is coming back. The northern part of the Shenandoahs, where it's lower elevation, the trout are going away quicker. And we're kind of in a sweet spot as long as we're at a high enough elevation right where we are.
Exactly.
Is what I kind of took away from all that, but it was interesting.
Acid rain is diluted in these bigger drainages.
Right.
I think southwest Grottoes, Waynesboro area on the west side and the east side, Doyle River, the trout are disappearing there because the geology won't buffer the acid rain like it does here in Madison County. Anyway, a lot of chemistry involved in that.
Yeah. And then the spotted lanternflies too, they mentioned they have seen them in the park, but after talking to where the spotted lanternflies came in through Pennsylvania and the National Park Services up there, originally they were really bad, and now they've kind of dropped back down into lower levels, and they're hoping that happens here as well. And I know that my dog ate a spotted lanternfly last night on my porch. So if anybody needs one, a beagle to come around their house and take care of these.
Got them under
For
control.
rent,
Good.
yeah, for rent.
There you go.
So that's what I learned.
Anybody have questions or?
Anybody else?
Well, the only, I just got one, excuse me, quick statement was, I got an email from the Shenandoah National Park Trust the other day, and they were given the figures that you just gave.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all the millions of dollars that are spent and thinking our portion of that is about like this.
Oh, it's smaller than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, now everybody's always trying to figure out a way to have more participation, Madison's participation in their spending. I mean, because many times, Bruce, I'm at the Etland store, and folks will come in from Northern Virginia, and they're gonna hike Old Rag, or they're gonna hike White Oak Falls, or whatever. And they pop in the store and ask directions to get there, get back in the car. They gassed up at home, they ate breakfast at home, they packed their lunch. And, we don't get a dime out of it, nothing. And that disappoints me, but I don't know what we can do about it
Now
at this
we have
point.
Cake Crumbs offering their prepackaged stuff.
Right,
That's
so
gonna
tell them,
block traffic.
don't bring your lunch.
Yeah,
Glamping spots for people use to go.
there you go.
But anyhow,
Yeah, we're.
That sounds like a
Uh-huh.
question for the economic development people. What do you do?
right.
You wish you owned Wolftown store. That's a gold mine right there.
There you go.
It is, it is.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruce. Jim, thank you. We're glad you returned, Judd, in all pieces. How was Jim's driving?
The Tesla drove itself.
Well, that's positive, I guess. All right, VDOT quarterly presentations. Ms. Shepherd, please, come on up and talk to us. In your own.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Carrie Shepherd here to give you the VDOT quarterly update. We can start off with our preliminary engineering updates for the Route 656 Courtney Hollow Lane Bridge replacement. That is in design right now. Next milestone is construction with an add date of fall 2024, so it should be going out very soon. Route 749 Moon Road Bridge replacement over the Hughes River. We just had a public hearing for that not too long ago, so next step is design approval. That add date is June 2027. The Route 29 Business Sidewalk Project, last milestone was survey. Next milestone would be scoping. This one has an add date of winter of 2027. And then last but not least is the Smart Scale application for the Route 230, 231 Pratt's Roundabout. Next milestone is environmental review, and the add date is still summer of 2028. Moving on to our rural rustic projects, Route 644 Emmett Road. I have that listed here as under construction because I did my report last week, but it was actually paved, so that's already done. It was paved yesterday and today.
Yesterday.
Yep. I heard that looks really good, so
It does.
pretty proud of that
Really
one.
nice.
And then Route 603 Whippoorwill Road, we're working on that right now, doing some pipe replacements. Because of where we're at in the season, I don't know that we're going to be able to pave it before it gets too cold, so our plan is going to get it all ready to go, and then in the spring we'll come back, dress it up, put down stone, and pave it. So that's our current plan for Whippoorwill. Next, our construction activities. The R-Cut at Route 29 at Shelby, that is continuing nicely, and we are expecting a completion date coming up very soon, October 2nd. As far as our bridge projects, Route 707 Pine Hill Road Bridge replacement, that is under construction right now. There is a temporary crossing for the first bridge that is going to be in place by October so that we are out of a trout restriction, time of year restriction for trout. That project completion date is expected by December of 2025. As far as our traffic engineering reviews right now, we got a request to look at Etland Road. That's going to be a speed limit review to see if it is appropriate to lower the speed limit. And when I have an update on that, I will provide it. I did get the intersection.
Jerry, how long does that usually
I'm sorry.
take? How long does that take?
That's a good question. We've had a lot of requests like this, so it's in queue.
Mm-hmm.
I can check and see kind of where we think that's going to be at. I wouldn't expect more than a month,
Okay.
but I can let you know.
Mr. Yao stated at the last meeting that there was there was maybe legislation that went through the state that said localities can request lowering speed limits. Is that right or wrong?
That's correct.
So if we request it, do we still have to do the review?
So that only applies to locations that are residential in nature or business district that are 25 miles an hour, and it gives you the ability to lower the speed limit to 15.
All right, so So it's not applicable on like 99% of the roads in the state of Virginia.
Yes.
There you go. All right.
Certainly not in Madison.
No, absolutely. All right, well, the
Okay.
town. We'll get back to the sidewalks. Keep going, please.
I was just going to mention that I did get the intersection that was mentioned here earlier this evening, so I can add that to our list too for review. And then just one last update. I don't have a slide for this, but just wanted to give a brief update on where we're at with the Kriegersville Bridge. In response to the letter that we got from the county requesting that we dismantle it, we've been working towards getting letters out to the affected property owners so that we can get permission to access the pieces of the bridge that we need to remove. Those letters have not gone out yet. We expect them to go out within the next week. And then, depending on that outcome, we'll take action at that time.
What happens if you don't get permission from one or more of the owners?
We would not be able to access the bridge to take it down, and it would just remain on their property. And I can take any questions or comments in addition to what we've just covered.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to comment on the culvert replacement on the Locustdale Road by Heartland Institute. There was a culvert replacement due to the fact that the previous one was collapsing, and there was a significant dip in the road. That was replaced this summer, and quite frankly, the road was not patched back correctly. Though it's actually more detrimental to traffic than it was when we had the dip. So somebody needs to go in there and smooth it out. I'm not sure why they left it in the condition they did, but I mean, it's a significant obstacle to traffic.
Okay.
I know because I traveled a lot. Thank you.
What about mowing? How is mowing going?
Well, we did have some delays because of the storm, Debbie. We had a lot of cleanup that we had to do, but we are getting back on track. We're about 50% through our second mowing of the cycle. So we're getting back on track. We got a little behind.
All right, like down on 15 where Oak Park comes out, wasn't that one of the issue areas?
Yeah, I think that stop sign, I think sometimes you do us a favor and mow that. But yeah, that area has seen mowing recently.
Man, we're getting hit on that one pretty good. What about paving schedule? How I understand they're coming this way down 231. Is that right or wrong?
I honestly,
231 from Sperryville?
I
This
can't
way?
tell you off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay.
We do have a link for the paving map. It should be at the end of the monthly report that I send. There's a link. If you click on that, you can go right to it on the map, and it'll tell you if it's about to be constructed, in progress, complete, that kind of thing. So that would be helpful, but I can also double check too.
All right. We should add that to our webpage or something, like a hot link to that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
230 seems to be we're hearing about it pretty often. 230 going to Orange, and then also, I guess, going to Standardsville, which they did a piece of, but we're getting complaints on those. 231 going basically everywhere. Lots of complaints there. There are multiple other roads and I was under the impression 231 coming from Sperryville, Hebron Valley looks just outstanding. I don't know what happened there. This spill, I don't know. It looks terrible. It really, really does. In Tatum School, I went down it the other day, and it's cleaned up. I guess the rain got a hold of it and knocked some of the mud off. What are we doing? Just go look at the paving schedule, I guess the best way to do this, and tell them that it's coming within the next couple of years?
The paving schedule that we have out right now is what's happening within this calendar year.
All right.
We have a tentative schedule for 2026, and I have a map that I can show you what those routes are, but I can't say that that's set in stone until it goes out to advertisement and is awarded.
All right.
So when that gets awarded, that contract, then that map will get updated for the calendar year 2026.
All right. What other ones do we have for you? We have quite the list. Jonathan, what else am I missing here?
We've got to go back. I've had some good dialogue with Ms. Shepherd. We're going to go back on our end. Brian may be in contact with you a little bit further. We had law enforcement do some speed enforcement or data collection on various roads, but I think there's a way that information needs to be shared or additional information from law enforcement through us to VDOT in order for them to process that data. Brian, anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I just have, it's raw data right now. I just need to format it the way that VDOT wants to see it, numbers wise, speed wise, put it in groups type of thing.
All right. All right.
I did have,
Please.
I did have one question. The Pine Hill temporary bridge, what's the weight limit on that? I know that's an out there question, but that's a one-way in, one-way out type of thing for fire apparatus, ambulances, and things of that nature.
I don't know.
Okay,
Let me look.
okay.
I did miss the last town meeting, but I was under the impression that the town had to commit the $450K, which was their component of that $2.2 million sidewalk project. Have they committed the $450 at this point?
I don't believe so. They've actually asked us to attend
Yeah.
their town council meeting. That's coming up, or did we
It
just?
should be the second, what, second Thursday of the month?
Yeah,
So it'll be
that's right.
second week of October.
Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna have representatives there to talk through it. I think there's just some concerns about why the estimate has gone up so
Yeah.
much.
All right, good. Anybody else have anything else?
I got one
Good,
more.
please, shoot.
I got one more, Ms. Shepherd, if you would take this down. I guess it's been almost 2 years ago now, on Etland Road, where Etland and Gibson Hollow Road goes to Ducard Vineyards, okay? Now, VDOT came in there and patched a bunch of, all the way from Etland to Weekly Hollow Road a couple years ago. Well, when they patched, it's kind of goes like this, and there's a drop-off going into Gibson Hollow Road. Well, Scott Elliff, the owner at Ducard, he uses a mobile bottling tractor trailer, okay? And right now, if he has that tractor trailer loaded with glass bottles to come in and do his bottling, it drags right there. So basically what they're having to do is, lighten the load. So we had reported this, and he had talked to someone with VDOT, almost 2 years ago, and nothing's been done yet, so I told him I would ask you to take a note of that, because this is a serious impediment to a major business in this county. Yeah.
I think to that point, Vice Chairman Yao, Kerry, if you maybe reach out to Jeff Garr, I was just doing I was doing some archiving in my emails. I have an email correspondence from July 28th, 2023 about that, so maybe Jeff will have an update or can kind of talk about maybe things that were done at that time.
Okay.
Sorry, Ms. Yao.
That's all right. Thank you.
What? All right. I think we've gone through the swinging bridge a bunch, but why was the swinging bridge closed?
It was after a routine inspection of July 2020 that a lot of safety issues were found with the towers and the cables and the boards just in general. Just the overall condition of it was to the extent that our bridge engineers felt like it was unsafe and needed to be closed until repairs could be made or something done about it.
You get that one, Miss Early? Yes, ma'am. All right. I got comments on that too, but I'll leave it alone. All right. Well, you'll do a review on that intersection that was stated earlier at the top of Oak Park.
Yes.
Then potentially come back with a recommendation on rumble strips or maybe flashers or something of that nature that seem very, very effective in lots of places in the state of Virginia, including Pratt's.
Yes, we will do an intersection review. Yes.
There you go. All right. 30 days, great. Anybody else got anything for Ms. Shepherd? Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you.
Don't have any public hearings, don't have any old business, new business. Mr. Weekly, why don't you start with EMS renovation contingency supplemental appropriation number 9, and I understand we're gonna go to Mr. Gordon after that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This past year, we had an invitation for bids for the EMS renovation project. At that time, the county accepted the lowest bid. It was roughly $1,006,428. There was no contingency at that time. Staff had talked to the board back in May and recommended at some point to establish a contingency, possibly by utilizing some positive funds that exist in the radio project. And it's been since that time, and we've had contact with all you, at least with the electrical wiring that was discovered. There's a lot of unknowns that we have come across that Mr. Gordon's going to get to momentarily. So as Brian goes through that breakdown at the end, you'll see a request of a contingency. Now, Brian has listed contingency items. We're saying a project contingency of set amount is what we're seeking tonight. So we have a consideration of up to $300K. I think once you go through the breakdown, I think staff certainly appreciates if you want to set that number a little lower, say to $250,000. But the idea, we've gotten through most of the discoverables that were of substance amounts, but staff would like to at least, one, establish a contingency for the project and to allow us to finish that project. The estimated time of completion is January 27th, 2024. So from there, I'd like to hand it over. Brian Gordon is the project manager, and he can talk about his list and kind of where we've been and where we currently are going.
Okay, so obviously this is an older building, and a lot of things showed its head when we started doing demolition. The first one that showed up was the additional asbestos that had not been captured in the original reports. We found an additional 240 square feet of it that has since been remediated and removed. The second one was Romex wiring. The Romex cannot sit on top of drop ceiling by current code, and it was in detrimental shape, for lack of a better term. So we replaced it, removed drop ceiling above an area around the offices where to make things easier, and ultimately is where HVAC trunk lines ended up. Demolition of a concrete stairs that were no longer needed in the upper bays, along with an elevated pad. This was done mainly for safety purposes back in ambulances in that lower bay. It was going to be inches clearance had we not done that. Wall mediation, lower bays, we uncovered that, found there was no footer under a concrete pad. We had to do something with that to support that wall. That came in obviously unexpected. We expected a footer to be there. Then we found some mold in the upper area that didn't turn out to be mold. It was actually diesel dust. Once they figured out, took a diesel dust sponge, found that, and it had what they call common mold attached to it. We went ahead and mediated it anyway just to prevent any future concerns. And then a couple of change orders have not come in. We know they're coming in. Lower bays, HVAC system and insulated doors and a ceiling on that. That's going to save us pretty good money over the long run on ambulances and external HVAC units. A lot of times when you see ambulances out of service, it's because of that external HVAC unit that's not working. If we're going to keep them indoors and air conditioned and heated, that kind of goes away. And then the last change order that's going to come in is for smoke detectors for the dormitory rooms, move washer and dryer, day room concrete, where we had to demo the asbestos. We had to build that back in for the floor. We had to move a sanitary pipe and wing walls and a stairwell going down from the day room area to the upper bays. At this point, I feel like all the rocks have been turned. There's not a whole lot left at this point, we're getting into finishing. So I feel really good about where we're at. All of that comes in. I do have two other items that I've been talking to EMS about as a result of the pharmacy mandate that was put in earlier this year, where they have to have vending machines and all that good stuff. They have to have data cables in there. They have to have an alarm system in there. They have to have a petition in that room to keep people from being able to get from one spot to the other for controlled substance. All of that, all in right now is right at 188,175.14. Like I said, I feel really good about that number not growing a whole lot, but again, it's an older building. We've hit a couple landmines here and there.
If you'll go, sorry, Mr. Chairman, go to the Tyler Munis report, which will be behind that. I think it's behind the supplemental there. You can see both projects listed now. I want to point out there's probably been some sizable invoices, so we're probably under $2 million remaining in the radio system. But Ms. Warren and Brian and myself have had extensive conversations about monies remaining, last payables of the radio project, which is doing great, on track. So we wanted just to clarify there's plenty of funding remaining. Even moving this amount over would still leave you very positive with closing out that project. Probably still positive for you to consider reassigning funds from that project or let it move. And even with this project, you close out, if we have remaining funds, it'll move from assigned fund balance, if you don't reassign it, to unassigned fund balance. It'll move from assigned currently in your capital to unassigned in your fund balance. So that's kind of how it works as you make decisions of an inter-fund transfer, and that's what's being proposed tonight with that supplemental, is moving it from capital, inter-fund from one project to the other.
I think with what's stated, I'm in favor of moving 250. Anything more than that, I mean, that should cover us. It still gives us a lot of reins and controls on it that we already have, and we've got the right people in place, obviously. But I think 250 is where we're at, and then we can start trying to figure out not where to spend it, because that'll be an easy part, but just kind of keep it going in the right direction. And it gives us 61K as leeway, which is ample funding. Anybody have questions or thoughts on this?
I just encourage you to come walk the building as time allows. They've made some huge project. I know this is the last time I met with Supervisor Dawson. They've actually got that kitchen area done now. Looks totally different. So
Poured concrete today for the lower stairwell in that upper bay.
you'll get a real good sense of what your funding decisions here tonight is, what that building will ultimately be. And we're going to schedule an open house. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but we plan on doing that, so not only for the board, but so the public can walk through and see the facilities.
I think insulating those lower bays, as far as ambulances, we are gonna have a plethora of gas station sheds after the end of this. But I think insulating that's just a no-brainer. I mean, we're going into it, we're doing it. Ambulances are, what, $490 or $450 or whatever?
And the cutting the HVAC off of it's roughly $5K, but what I've seen is the maintenance of the HVAC units on those ambulances what kills us, because they take one out of service, it's out of service for a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, and that hurts our services.
All right.
Yeah, those things gotta be environmentally controlled. There's no question, that's a.
Anything we can do to protect a $500,000 investment, and get a little bit more life out of it, it's well worth it. What would y'all like to do on the supplemental appropriation?
Mr. Chairman, I just have
Please, yes, sir.
one question I want to ask, and I know that this has been expensive, and we've tried to keep the lid on expenses, and I think the team has done an excellent job. But just to take a step back and put this in perspective, for what we're getting a facility that's going to last us for a long time. If we would have had to go out and build a similar facility from scratch, what kind of dollar amount would we be looking at?
So, Brian, you have contacts like I do in Greene. I believe Greene County 3 years ago, it was over $3 million.
But they own the land.
And they owned the land. So if they had to purchase land, it would be even more. And I believe we have more square footage at this location. So
about
if
50% of what it would have
if
cost
you
us.
add your land acquisition of what you had to give for your property, and if this building turns out 1.2, or, you'll be at 1.75, which is a functional building. You start hearing footers and things we're putting in, it's protecting it well beyond a 10 or 15-year shell life. You're going to have a solid building.
It's not even including the sidewalks from VDOT. Yeah, I know.
And the location.
And we, Yep, absolutely. What would you like to do with the supplemental appropriation?
Yeah,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve supplemental appropriation number 9 in the amount of $250,000 and instead of the $300,000 that's listed in the document.
And if I may, Mr. Vice Chairman, can you add additional language that would be, this funding would be to officially establish a project contingency?
Yes, sir. To add that to officially establish the EMS building project contingency.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, let's knock these out. Grazy Mountain Lodge Apple Harvest Festival large-scale outdoor event permit application. Mr. Weekly, have they complied with everything?
Yes, sir. We have no issues.
What, anybody have any questions, thoughts, or a motion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Overdrive monster truck large-scale outdoor event permit application. Everything finally been complied with and got a plan and everything? Signatures?
We have signatures. We do have insurances, signatures in the event plan. We will not have any dedicated EMS units. I know they are working independently with the fire chief if they're going to make any requests of that apparatus. I did talk to the EMS chief today. We have 7 people on staff, so that would allow us, 3 ambulances. God forbid if we need them. So we are ready for a call if there is a call, but we will not be on the scene.
Questions, thoughts, motion, what would you like to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the event permit for the Overdrive monster trucks.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anybody have any discussion? Information and correspondence. Mr. Weekly, tell us about the reassessment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you may recall, you all awarded the reassessment contract to Wingate Appraisals. They are very familiar with the county. They did the last appraisal cycle as well. Mr. Daniel, our commissioner, myself, we've had some dialogue. We just kind of want to give an idea of what's the timeline, what to expect. So I thought it'd be good for the board to see that here tonight. If you go below the last bullet point, starting in the paragraph, it is noteworthy that the effective date for the reassessment is January 1st, 2025. Next month, Wingate will petition the circuit court judge requesting a 90-day extension. And my initial thought was, what does that mean for our timeline? They do not feel like they were going to need or use all of 90 days. They feel like they're just going to need a little bit, few more dates in January. So the plan is to get it completed in January, start having your board of equalization meetings, which will be publicly advertised, of those hearing dates. So you all would be ready to make decisions in advance of your budget workshops and your adoption of your budget. Generally, a reassessment year, you think of the term equalized rate, so you'll have those discussions. Earlier on, we'll wait for full-blown assessments, but we'll tell folks don't be shocked for 30% increase in baselines. It's just where the market's at. But again, I just want to bring note that if you read that on face value, you think, oh, they need a whole nother 90 days. They're saying a few days in January. Get the board equalizations meetings done in February and get things wrapped up so you can make your decisions in advance of budget. So that's for information for the board and the general public, so you can see clearly where we are headed.
Questions or comments on that, please, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Weekly, what's the status of our equalization board appointees?
So we have 7, and Kim has talked quite a bit with I think it's the Department of Taxation on that. So we'll have to get them trained. We are actually ahead of schedule on that, so I don't believe training will occur, and I'm going to lean past you, excuse me for a second. December, I think, is when we're lining that up. We tried to find an in-person scheduling, but I think it's going to be a virtual option. There may be a virtual option to get the whole group together if they want, but training will occur in December. So I came to you early, quite frankly, we were searching hard there for a while, and there at the end, it seemed like we filled up with interest. So we have them. What we learned, I believe, Kim, is they have to have the training before the circuit court will appoint them. So may have been a little prematurely to bring them to you, but at least we have those folks in agreement. We're going to get their training, and then we'll send them over to the circuit court for full appointment. Yes, sir. 2 of the 7 will have to be alternates, but, you know, it's a total of 7 the board appointed.
Other questions on this?
I talked to Radar Saturday, and Radar told me that, he said, you know, I told him we had 7, and that might be the situation. He goes, well, I just threw my name in there just to make sure we had somebody. And that's the kind of guy he is. So if, you know, he would certainly probably be willing to just be an alternate because he's going to make sure we were covered.
Yes, we appreciate that. He also helped us with our coverage testing recently, so it speaks more to what you're saying.
The only one, I want to go backwards, I apologize. Back to the EMS, we have to give the current landlord, what, a 90-day?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, we gave him official notice today.
Awesome. There you go.
I have not heard from them. It's my understanding that they may want to have conversations about fixed assets and things like that. So we look forward to discussions, but they were notified today that January 27th is the completion on the project.
All right, well, thank you. Anybody else have anything? All right, public comment. Public comment. Oh, here we go. All right.
Hello. It's odd being on this side of things. But unfortunately, as of about 1:30 this afternoon, the Madison Eagle editor position was eliminated. So I thank you for the last 10 years. I've had a great time with all of you. I have no idea what this means for the Eagle. It's sad. I mean, community newspapers are important. Sometimes that importance just isn't seen. But I'm hoping that someone will step in, and there's lots of stories to tell, so hopefully they'll still tell those stories. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gracie. We're sorry to see you go. Oh, yeah. That's a bummer.
Really?
Yeah. That is a bummer. Yeah. Thank you. All right, other public comment. Hearing none, all in favor, or what would y'all like to do? No closed session. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you all. That is a bummer.